Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're navigating some profoundly unsettling territory. We're exploring a side of college life that often stays hidden in the shadows. The dark, sometimes dangerous reality of hazing. We've gathered some truly harrowing stories today, not just to recount tragedies, but, to try and understand the systemic issues, the psychological pressures that lead to these initiations going terribly, terribly wrong.
It's a really critical lens to apply, isn't it? What we find so, fascinating isn't just the individual acts themselves, it's how deeply ingrained these traditions can become. They often blur the lines between what might be seen as team building and, frankly, outright abuse.
Right.
It makes you ask, at what point does a rite of passage become a deadly ordeal? And maybe more importantly, why do we as a society kind of let it persist?
That's exactly. Our mission today is to pull out the crucial insights from these really unsettling real-life incidents from across the years. We want to reveal the devastating human cost, sure, but also try to dissect the mechanisms at play. So, let's get into it. Okay, so fraternities, sororities, various student organizations, they're often seen as like a cornerstone of college social life.
Absolutely. They promise community, a network.
A sense of belonging, which is incredibly appealing, especially when you're new on campus. But as we're going to see, the pledging or initiation period, it often includes hazing rituals. And when these rituals are run by, immature students or sometimes worse, intoxicated students, that line between bonding and brutality gets erased fast.
And if we think about the broader picture here, that intense desire to be accepted, into a group you really want to join, it can lead people to endure things that are frankly unspeakable. And the group dynamic itself, it can normalize behavior that's truly shocking. Yeah. Psychologically, you're looking at things like de-individuation. Individual accountability just gets lost in the crowd. And the bystander effect suddenly becomes tragically amplified.
That makes a lot of sense. Our first story really exemplifies this dangerous dynamic. It takes us to the University of California, Irvine, back in 2005. Kenny Leong, he was a 19-year-old pledge. He was one of 10 students forced into this brutal 3-hour game of American football.
3 hours?
Yeah. And they were playing against 40 active brothers and alumni of Lambda Phi Epsilon. This was a fraternity already known for its hazing.
Right, they had a reputation.
And this wasn't just, a pickup game. No padding, no helmets, zero protection. Pledges were forced to do dangerous stunts, like jumping up and landing flat on their chests without using their hands.
Oh my God.
People were splitting their chins open, but the game just kept going, getting more and more violent. Kenny was tackled so hard he was knocked unconscious. He was out for 10 agonizing minutes before he started violently convulsing.
A sign of severe brain swelling.
Exactly. And here's where the focus shifts from just the violence to something more chillingly calculated. Before anyone even thought about calling an ambulance, the fraternity brothers and alumni forced the other pledges into a vow of silence.
Immediately.
Their instructions were crystal clear.
Yeah.
Tell the authorities it was a friendly game of football. Under no circumstances mention initiation or hazing. Tragically, Kenny was pronounced brain dead later that week.
What's truly disturbing there isn't just the violence itself, horrific as it is. It's the immediate, almost premeditated attempt to cover it all up. And the fact that another pledge, Daniel Day, later said that Lambda presidents always had lawyers ready for situations like this.
Wow.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? It points to a systemic issue of prioritizing legal defense over actually preventing harm. It feels like the risk of harm is almost an accepted, if unfortunate, part of the tradition.
Like a profound moral abdication.
Absolutely. Especially when you consider none of the fraternity members ever faced criminal charges for Kenny's death.
A culture of silence, indeed. And that leads us directly into our next set of stories. These reveal the lethal dangers when that secrecy extends to forced consumption, especially alcohol, turning a social thing into a weapon.
Right.
Okay, so in 2009, a Bartbus graduate named Ravital shared her harrowing experience. She was a Kappa Gamma pledge. Blindfolded in the middle of the night, driven somewhere unknown, she was forced to chug this extremely strong alcoholic concoction from a large water bottle. And they kept giving her shots of vodka, too.
Forced consumption. Coercion.
Totally. Desperate to join the sorority, Ravital drank, as she put it, an ungodly amount. Her memory just vanishes after they force her out of the car. She woke up in the intensive care unit. Her blood alcohol content was 0.399.
0.399. That's almost always fatal.
She said herself, I was literally one sip of alcohol away from dying. And adding to the terror, her body was covered in cuts and bruises, suggesting something else happened after she blacked out.
This incident just starkly highlights the difference between, typical college partying or experimentation and deliberate life-threatening coercion. The combination of forced drinking, the blindfolds taking away sensory input, and then the subsequent injuries. It points to a profound disregard for safety, for human dignity.
It's not about letting loose.
No, it's about a calculated erosion of personal agency under extreme peer pressure. It's a form of ritualized psychological abuse that could so easily have turned fatal.
The psychological manipulation is undeniable. And speaking of life-threatening coercion, our next case takes us way back to 1954. University of Southern California Kappa Sigma pledges. Their initiation ritual involves swallowing a quarter-pound piece of raw, oil-soaked liver without chewing.
Raw liver, quarter pound, without chewing. That sounds medieval.
It's horrifying. During this ritual, Richard Swanson started to choke. The meat got lodged in his throat. He died 2 hours later in the hospital, gasping for breath the entire time.
2 hours.
But the truly devastating detail here is the cover-up that followed. The Kappa Sigma brothers deliberately withheld crucial information from the ambulance crew. They didn't tell them about the meat.
They didn't tell them. Why?
Fear of getting caught hazing, presumably.
Oh.
So the paramedics thought Richard was suffering from some kind of nervous spasm.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he likely would have survived if they'd known the truth, if they could have dislodged the obstruction.
That just reveals this critical intersection of fear, secrecy, and a complete breakdown of moral obligation. The decision to prioritize protecting the fraternity's reputation over a human life. It's a profound failure. It shows how the perceived consequences of exposure, legal, social, whatever, can outweigh the immediate life-saving need for honesty, with just tragic consequences.
The impulse to protect the group, even at the cost of a life. It's a haunting pattern we see again and again. And sometimes the environment itself becomes the ultimate unforgiving test. It turns hazing rituals into even greater tragedies.
The setting matters.
Definitely. In our next case, after a week of intense hazing by CL State's Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter, 2 young women, 22-year-old Kristen High and 24-year-old Kina Safir, were taken to Dock Wireless State Beach. They were forced to exercise for hours, then told to walk backwards into the ocean.
Backwards into the ocean.
Yes. And here's the crucial detail. Kina did not know how to swim.
She couldn't swim, and they told her to walk backwards into the surf.
Exactly. But, having come this far, so close to getting into the sorority, they complied. Then a ferocious wave hit Kina, dragged her out. Kristen bravely swam out, trying to save her friend, but the currents were too strong. They pulled both girls under. Their bodies were recovered later.
That is just a stark illustration of the immense pressure to conform. It's like that sunk cost fallacy, right? You feel compelled to continue because you've already invested so much. These young women overrode their fundamental instincts, Kina's basic ability to swim, just because the group demanded it. It's such a tragic example of how that desire to belong can silence even basic self-preservation. They placed their trust in a group that ultimately failed them.
The betrayal of that trust is just heartbreaking. And this next story from the University of Miami in 2001, it again highlights that deadly combination, environment, alcohol, and these distorted ideas of what a rite of passage should be.
Okay.
So classes were canceled because of a hurricane warning. This led to a party at the Kappa Sigma frat house. Travis Montgomery, one of the brothers and a friend of 18-year-old Chad Meredith, suggested a rite of passage. The idea: swim across freezing Lake Oco.
During a hurricane warning, swim across a lake.
Yes. Chad, apparently drunk and determined, stripped to his underwear and started the 437-foot swim with 2 other members. Halfway across, he started struggling. He called out for help. But the other 2 just continued to dry land. They assumed someone else was helping him.
Assumed.
Sat.
The bystander effect again.
Right. Intoxicated, exhausted. Chad disappeared just 34 feet from the shore. His body was recovered later. His blood alcohol content was 0.13. His family was eventually awarded $14 million in compensation, the largest ever for a fraternity hazing death at the time.
What's particularly striking there is the deadly synergy, alcohol-impaired judgment, peer pressure, and a completely misguided sense of tradition. The assumed heroism of the act, coupled with that tragic failure to provide immediate help, it's a classic example of diffusion of responsibility. Everyone assumes someone else will step up, so nobody does. It just highlights a severe lack of situational awareness and, frankly, moral responsibility within that group.
The tragic outcomes just keep revealing this disturbing pattern. Violence, neglect, and sometimes in unexpected places, challenging our assumptions about where hazing even occurs.
It's not just frats and sorority.
Exactly. In 2011, at Florida A&M University, Robert Champion, he was a skilled musician, a drum major, wanted to be band leader. To even be considered, he had to go through something called Crossing Bus C. It was a band tradition where he had to walk down the aisle of a parked bus while being punched, kicked, hit with various objects by other band members.
In a marching band. This was a band tradition.
Yes. Robert collapsed before he even made it to the other side. He died from soft tissue bleeding caused by the beating. His family received $1.1 million and an apology from the university. The ban was suspended for over a year.
This incident really forces us to broaden our understanding of hazing beyond just Greek life, doesn't it? It raises that important question. Why do students feel compelled to endure such brutal traditions, even in highly disciplined organizations like a marching band? It speaks to a deeply entrenched culture where proving your worth or earning a position is somehow equated with surviving violence and humiliation.
Instead of demonstrating skill or leadership.
Precisely.
That's a crucial distinction. And sometimes the very environment that's meant to be symbolic turns terrifyingly real.
Symbolic acts with real consequences.
Right. In 1979, at Monmouth College, 5 pledges of the Zeta Beta fraternity were taken to a sandy beach on the Atlantic Ocean. They were made to dig symbolic graves 6 feet deep. Then they were told to lie in them while the brothers covered them in sand.
Symbolic graves on a beach. That already sounds risky.
It was. William E. Flowers' symbolic grave became horrifyingly real when it collapsed in on him. He inhaled heaps of sand and cut off his oxygen. The other fraternity members couldn't dig him out in time. William died of asphyxiation.
What's truly chilling there is how a ritual, intended maybe as some symbolic act of rebirth or whatever, tragically turned deadly just because of the sheer unpredictability of the environment. Sand is unstable. It just profoundly underscores the negligence involved when you put individuals in inherently dangerous situations without proper safety checks, without considering the real risks.
Symbolic acts can have very real, fatal consequences.
Absolutely.
Indeed. And our final story brings us to 1990 Virginia State University. This involved an unsanctioned underground fraternity called Men of Honor. The lack of oversight just compounded the tragedy.
Underground groups, even more dangerous.
Definitely. 7 pledges were made to link arms and try to cross the length of the Appomattox River without separating. What the Men of Honor members hadn't realized, or maybe hadn't checked, was that the river had swollen considerably. The current was far stronger than usual. The 7 pledges were just swept downstream almost immediately. 5 were rescued pretty quickly, but Marvel Edmondson and Unan Holmes were swept out of sight. Their bodies were recovered 2 days later.
Just swept away.
Yeah. 4 of the members of this unsanctioned group were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and hazing charges. They got prison sentences ranging from 5 to 14 months.
Well, this case really highlights the magnified dangers of these underground groups, doesn't it? They operate completely without any institutional oversight, which just amplifies all the risks we've been talking about, but poor judgment, potential malice. The absence of even minimal accountability structures means there's no one to intervene, no one to regulate. The legal consequences, while they were present in this case, they can never truly account for the loss of life. But they do underscore the criminal negligence involved.
So after hearing all this, what does it all mean for us? These stories, they're not just isolated incidents, are they? They're haunting patterns of tragedy. They seem rooted in these twisted interpretations of loyalty, tradition, and that immense pressure to belong. They serve as a stark reminder of the chilling human cost when initiation spirals into abuse. We see this consistent thread: cover-ups, disregard for safety, a dangerous prioritizing of the group's image over individual well-being.
And knowledge is most valuable when it's understood and applied, right? These cases demand that we critically examine the dynamics of group conformity, the bystander effect, those deeply ingrained cultures of silence. We need to really dissect the very definition of what it means to earn your place. And we need to hold institutions accountable for fostering environments that are actually safe, not just symbolically safe.
It leaves us with a difficult question, really.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, to consider. When that desire to belong feels overwhelming, how do you distinguish between a true test of character and what's actually a dangerous manipulation? We hope these stories spark further thought and discussion for you, make you think about the immense power of group dynamics and also personal responsibility. Thank you for joining us on this rather somber deep dive. If these stories and insights gripped you, please make sure to share this deep dive and subscribe to the deep dive for more in-depth explorations. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay well informed.